Now let us have a look on an example of designing an assignment. We shall discuss this example from various aspects for you to have an idea the considerations for designing an assignment. The assignment here is designed for the course Reinforced Concrete Design, one of the most popularly used assignment among the universities. This assignment is about designing a multi-story reinforced concrete structure, and you will expect the students will go through the entire design for a reinforced concrete structure. The students will have to use the engineering knowledge learned from the course in order to analyze and design the structure. Normally, these informations are given in the project handouts, and normally this project is given in the first week of the semester. Sufficient time should be given to the students. My personal practice, the assignment given in the early of the semester, and the submissions it will be towards the end of the semester. For a typical 14 weeks semester, assignments is given in the first week. Submissions will be on week 13. Presentations and feedback shall be given in week 14. The students shall be given the architectural plan, which we get the samples from the industry. Therefore, all the plans and informations provided to the students shall closely simulate what is happening in the industry, as the word of a typical engineer. Whichever information is given to an engineer in order to carry out the work shall also be given to the students. The only things different is that the engineers conduct the work alone, while we do this assignment in a group, typically 3 to 5 persons. The students are required to analyze and design RC structures based on the architectural plans. The requirement is that the architectural plan shall serve as the ultimate references, where no design from the structural plan shall affect the architectural plans. The students will have to come up with the solutions, meeting all the requirements in the architectural plans. And then, the students need to produce the structural plan, illustrating all the details of the structural elements. After that, the students need to submit their design reports for the project, demonstrating how they do the design, what are the considerations, what are the design output. And then the students are asked to do presentations explaining the building design. All this needs to be clearly stated in the project handout so that students are aware of what they are supposed to do, what are the things given to them, what are the expectations out of this. Normally, I will specify the learning outcome out of the assignment. This includes understanding the architectural plan, analyzing and designing the structure in accordance to Eurocode 1 and 2. Eurocode 1 is used to determine the loads acting onto the structure, while Eurocode 2 are meant for the design. And then the students shall be able to produce structural plan in order to illustrate the details of the structural elements and connections. In terms of the structural plan, since the architectural plans is equivalent to industrial standard, the students are also expected to produce their structural plan towards the industrial standards. Samples may be given to the students, and briefing should also be given to the students. What makes a good structural plan? Personally, I observe that without proper supervisions to the students related to the structural plan, normally the quality of the structural plan produced by the students is very low, which is not applicable for industrial practices. If possible, we can give some good structural plan as acquired from the industry, and then indicate to them where are the common mistakes by the students, why is it so, and how industrial people deal with the structural plans. On top of that, we are also looking into the transferable skills. You can have as many as you wish, But in this case, the focus it will be on planning and executions of a project, and then work effectively as a team member and communicate well. Since these two are stated in the learning outcome for the assignment, there should be some mechanism to facilitate that. This is another common mistake by the lecturers, trying to declare something which may or may not be available, and we do not have much information related to it. If you wish to have those incorporated in your assignment, make sure there are some mechanism to monitor and to verify if it really exists in the assignment. You need to make sure the students cannot bypass that. For the first 3 items, it will be more towards the technical. Normally, we will not have any problem. Why is it so? Because these first 3 is closely related to the theme and focus of the assignment. Now, the challenging part, it will be the last 2, which is related to the soft skills. We shall discuss on this later. Then you can clearly specify what the students need to do. Especially the scope need to be clearly outlined. Make sure the students will not miss any item which you feel is important. Remember, I always say, when you design an assignment, you need to simulate the process that the students have to go through in order to complete the assignment. You need to make sure they do not bypass any of the important steps, so that what you anticipated shall be in line to what is happening in the reality. This allows you to do the assessment where the result of the assessment closely reflect the actual situation. And then in the case that the assessment outcome seems to be unfavorable, then you will know where are the problems. You can always come back to those working steps of the students to further fine-tune, facilitating their learning process. Now the question here is, what you anticipate the students going through in completing the assignment may not necessarily be true. It is pure speculations and assumption. One of the ways to minimize the assumptions and speculation is that you have the steps or the scope clearly outlined to the students. Make sure they will not miss any significant part of it. So in this case, I will clearly outline the scopes, asking the students to produce structural key plan for every floor. There will be foundation key plan, ground floor key plan, first floor key plan, and roof key plan. This is for a typical double-story building. I find producing the key plan is significant and important, as this is the basis of producing structural plans. I would like the students to have the ability to produce key plan, and more importantly, to have the ability to read the structural key plan. This is some knowledge that is essential to a typical civil engineer, either as a consultant or as a contractor. In the industry, consultants produce structural plan, while the contractor construct buildings based on the structural plan produced. Therefore, having the ability to read and produce structural plans are essential. With that, I have made it clear to the students, all the key plan needs to be produced. Of course, you may have your own strategy. What are your purposes? You may design accordingly. And then the second steps, the students need to analyze, design and produce detailing for a reasonable numbers of RC structural elements. The structural elements has been outlined there. You can make it more precise by changing these reasonable numbers into something more explicit. Let's say now, 1 structural element each, 2 structural elements each, or all the structural elements for the entire structure. Now remember that when we want to design the assignment, we need to have an idea how much time the student need to spend on this assignment. Taking the maximum numbers of members in the group as a 5%, then you might need to quantify the total hours spent on this assignment divided by 5%, and then start to calculate their SLT for this assignment. The assignment SLT shall later be added up towards the entire course, including the lectures, tutorials, and other assessment. Make sure the SLT falls within the reasonable range. Of course, when you are computing the SLT for the assignment here, there are a lot of assumptions and speculation. But you can always do a survey, getting feedback from the students for you to have an idea what is the actual durations spent by the students for that particular assignment. Then you can cross-check this. Over the semester, you will have a better feeling in terms of the amount of work that you require the students to do, including their learning time, so that the amount of time invested for this assignment shall be reasonable. We are not designing a super challenging assignment to the students, as you know that your course may not be the only course that students are taking in that particular semester. There are also other courses. We shall come back with how we deal with the SLT here later. But the principle here is that you have to quantify the time the students spend to produce those analysis, design, detailings, and also reports, plus the time that they learn and exploring the concepts, principles, and theories, plus the time that they seek your consultations and supervisions. It will be on the estimation basis. Then you have to monitor every semester whether the amount of words given to the students is justified. And then probably you can give a clear guideline what are expected from the report. Some lecturers do not provide this. They leave the flexibility to the students. Personally, I will have those all clearly specified, especially for the last two learning outcomes here. I want to make sure there are evidence that those has already been incorporated in the assignment. This is not only for my personal monitoring, it shall ultimately also serve as the evidence when it comes to the accreditation practices. So in this case, I will have those clearly outlined as a part of the report. The students are quite familiar with typical structure of a report. Even though you don't outline this, at least the major part here, it will not be deviated too far. Based on my personal observations, normally students can produce the report, and many tends to demonstrate in details how they do the calculations. However, there are a lot of problems with the writing skills. This is another part that requires supervisions. Especially many students produce their reports from the perspective of the students. That means from the perspective of the writer of the report themselves. They never talk about the purpose of writing those reports. It is not just demonstrating their calculation steps. Many miss the important part, which are the design consideration part, normally without proper justifications. They simply adopt certain numbers without proper justifications. Why is it so? Why they assume so? Where they get the value? And so on and so forth. This is one of the common mistakes. Another one is normally students do not really provide good summary of their design output. So at the end of the day, when we want to refer for the output, we'll have to flick through the pages, read between the lines to get all the details. In this case, you will see that there are still much to learn by the students in producing report. The report shall not only be produced in one manner, where the reader by hook or by crook have to read from the first word to the last word in order to prevent himself from getting lost in the report. The report should also be well structured in the manner that readers are allowed to quickly refer to the report for relevant details. Some readers may not read from the first word to the last word. The report should be friendly enough for this kind of reader. That makes the summary of the design output significant. As for the design considerations, it should also be properly organized and summarized. And then for the calculations, students will just need to prove that they design everything according to the proper steps and procedures. Students can show samples of their calculations, since every structural element comprises lengthy calculations. And then the rest, it may end up to be in the mode of tables or summaries, allowing the readers in the case that would like to replicate the result, recompute everything. All the details and informations are traceable. Therefore, it is no need for the students to produce really thick report, showing the calculations from the first step to the last step for every structural element design. This will make the report to have a lot of area repeating, and it serves no purpose. So with that, normally I will encourage the students to show the steps, to show the equations, shows the values adopted in the equations, and probably show the procedures just for one sample, and the rest, it will be computations in the tables. Now settle the report part here. How about the soft skill? If I do not specify this as a part of the report, normally students will miss this. This leaves me no evidence about the thing that I would like to achieve at the end of the assignment. I want some planning and executions of the project. Therefore, normally I will ask the students to show their project progress. We shall discuss on this later. I want them to have teamwork. Then they will need to prove their contributions as a group member. I want some communication skills. Then this can be achieved through presentation. And I'm also hoping that students can learn something from the assignment and provide feedback regarding the things that they learn for future improvements. Probably we can request the students to produce some summary in terms of the lesson learned. And the lesson learned may not necessarily be restricted on the technical part. It can also be the soft skill part, or their exposure and experiences. And we will have to encourage the students to really be honest on these two parts here, knowing that there is possibility that the students simply made up certain things just for the sake that the report looks nice. But at least we try something, and we have to put our belief to the students. Whichever being written by the students, unless we have some other better way to monitor this, based on whichever that is available, we take them as a references for future improvement of the assignment. Next is about the requirements. Normally, I will provide brief requirements for different aspects of their works. These requirements are a bit general, as typically required from the students in terms of the structural plan, in terms of the design report, and also in terms of the presentation. Students are encouraged to go through this, at least they are aware of all this. As for the detailed requirements, it shall come together with the assessment criteria and the rubrics later. This one is just meant to give some ideas to the students. What are the considerations? Make sure you clearly specify the due dates. And based on my personal experience, once a while there are students requesting for few days delay. Since that my emphasis here is for the quality reports, my emphasis it would be the learning process here. Normally I do not clearly specify the consequences of late submission. Instead, I will encourage the students to submit earlier so that I have more time to read through their reports. In return, I can give them more feedbacks, more quality comments, helping them to improve their assignment in future. And because of this, there are always some group of students really show their eagerness to learn, and they usually submit earlier, giving me more time to go through their report. In return, more comments can be given on their mistakes and also rooms for improvement. This is good because the assignment itself is a formative assessment. Feedback should be given to the students. Now, because some of the groups submit their report earlier, they help to buffer the times for the group of students not being able to complete on time. This will not affect the marking process of the lecturer.